talk about cold, and I know it's been out there, and you see people doing the dips all the time. I got a bathtub in there that I pop my big old body in there, and we get beneath. I try to get low enough to get the vagus nerve under the water, and I love after that initial it's awesome. Like I actually get warm after about 5 minutes. I feel like I'm in a sea of fire.
Yeah, so that's your blood flow coming in from the peripheral, like from your arms, and going into your core to protect the organs, etc., the most essential body parts. And the blood is like literally just coming in, and you feel that warmth. And it's incredible. I agree. Like, most people think that you'll just be sitting there just freezing cold for however long you're in there. But yeah, like over a couple minutes, like that happens to me as well, that I actually feel warm. And it's an incredible feeling. It's an enlivening feeling. It's a rush. I just did it, right before our podcast. I go from like a hot shower to as cold a shower as I can go at the end, and it just wakes me up. And like you talked about, I definitely like to get the vagus nerve, like to get my full head. There's something called the dive reflex
Yeah.
that makes it even better. So absolutely, huge fan of cold thermogenesis. What happens is your body will upregulate the basal metabolic rate because it's cold and it's trying to maintain homeostasis. It's trying to put you in a state of ease when you're putting it in a state of dis-ease. So your body is doing everything it can in that moment to protect the organs, to increase alertness, to keep your body at a stable temperature, especially the core. But it's also doing some things with brown adipose tissue, and that's going to make you more metabolically active long run, because that brown adipose tissue is meant for thermogenesis. It's actually brown because it's so mitochondrial dense. And most of it's right here around your collarbone and scapula. You only have about 6 ounces of it on your body. It's a very unique fat. And we used to think that it was just on mice, or we didn't know that it had much purpose. And then we found out that babies use it for like that first 6 to 9 months because they lack the ability to shiver, and shivering creates thermogenesis. So they use the brown adipose tissue to get warmth until they have the ability to shiver. And we're now finding that people that seem to have the ability to eat a fair amount and not put on weight, this could be the difference, is that they have more brown adipose tissue and more active brown adipose tissue.
Is there a way to grow it or make it more active? Are there things that you can do? This is a lead-in question because I know the answer.
Yes, there is. And obviously, like we were just talking about, cold plunges are going to be great. And even better is if you create the bigger delta, which is going to be contrasting, where you're going from hot to freezing cold. That's even better. But I'll tell you, even if this seems hard, like to go really cold, ice bath, all that kind of stuff, there's data to show that just 60-degree temperatures, we're not talking super cold, we're just talking cool. 60-degree temperatures will still upregulate to some degree, not to the same degree, but will still upregulate brown adipose tissue. So if you can at least do cool showers or swim in a cool pool, that's going to be great for your brown adipose tissue.
What I love to do, Shawn, is do a resistance training, and my favorite one is tire flips. So I've got a big tractor tire, 200-pound tractor tire. I'll flip. Doesn't take long, very quick workout, 10 to 15 minutes, I'm done, to exhaustion. And then I pop into my infrared sauna in the 130s, and I'll stay in there for like a 20-minute session. And then from the infrared sauna right to an ice bath. And you want to talk about making your body kind of go, what are we doing? But it's cool because within a few minutes, I'm in such a melancholy state. And when I get out of that ice bath, yeah, you're cool to the touch, but you're just like, you feel like you're floating. Well, you just had a session not long ago. It is the most transcendent kind of experience. Like you almost meditated, and it was like a physiological meditation rather than a mental one.
Very much. That's a really great point too about a lot of these hormetic stresses is what makes a resilient body is going to make a resilient mind and vice versa. It's been shown that the more resilience you have in your body, the more hormetic stress capacity you have in your body, the more that you have in your brain. So, meaning, if I'm better at doing cold showers, I'm better at doing hot saunas, I'm better at intermittent or extended fasting, I'm better at keto, I'm better at high intensity interval training, I'm also better at dealing with stress at work, stress from relationships, stress from life,
Yes.
and vice versa. And they found that too. People that are mentally resilient, that are great reframers, they also end up being better at the hormetic stresses physiologically. So this is where the two are very intertwined, and it's a great that you point out that like when you go into these cold plunges or hot saunas, that you can actually find your inner peace, and
Yes.
you can get more resilient mentally in that state as you find your zen.
I mean, I think about all the people that talk about how they're so stressed in their life, and they have the stress to the point that it affects their sleep. And we're going to get into that in a second. And then it affects their energy the next day, and then they feel like crap because they're pushing towards insulin resistance because of the bad sleep from the bad stress that you can't resolve because it's all tied, guys. I hope you're seeing that. And he puts the pieces all together in this book. Please get this book because, again, I think it brilliantly outlines, and I never even noticed till you said this, how you started hard, like really hardcore kind of sciencey and kind of, these things need to be done, and then you're like, you were getting towards the things you should be doing. It's very well done, is what I'm saying. So let's get into sleep, because this is one that people struggle with. And a lot of times it's not the comfortable environment, what you were talking about earlier. They're not getting a cold enough temperature, which I crank my air down. Even when in the winter, if it's not cold enough, I'll crank it down to make sure it's 65 in there, which is going to lower the core metabolic rate temperature in my body. I wear the Oura ring, so I know exactly what my body temp's doing during the night. But there's still some people, they have trouble. And I think it has to do with not adequately dealing with the stress. So you talk about in here, and I want you to expand upon it here, the cortisol melatonin relationship, because when cortisol's high, you can't expect to sleep well because melatonin is, for lack of a better word, effed.
100%. So, there's several things that you mentioned there. So, certainly cortisol is problematic, as well as elevated epinephrine, all these corticosteroids, et cetera,
Yeah.
like because we're too stressed, because that bucket is too small.
Yes.
And we have very little stress capacity. So when we're overwhelmed at work, when we're distracted from social media, when we, go a couple hours without eating and we say, my blood sugar is crashing, all of this stuff, when our team loses in sports, like it's just too much. We're overwhelmed because that bucket is so small, because we're not doing all these biohacks. We're not doing extended fasting. We're not doing cold plunges. We're not getting enough sleep. And so those things are very important, that these stress hormones are staying elevated, and then it's affecting our quality of sleep, and it begets itself. One thing that happens too, Jimmy, is like when you don't get enough sleep, you actually become acutely insulin resistant in the brain.
Yeah.
And we know that Alzheimer's is actually considered type 3 diabetes. So
Yeah.
this is like when you're not getting enough sleep, it's essentially acute Alzheimer's. And that's why you wake up with that brain fog. Your synapses are actually firing slower. And so, what's our solution to that brain fog and lack of cellular energy, called brain energy gap? It's going to be caffeine, it's going to be sugar, it's going to be these things because I just need to get going. I'm so exhausted. And then you also run into decision fatigue because you're tired. And so you're not going to make the smarter, healthier decisions because you're exhausted. So now you're going to, I'll skip the gym tomorrow. I'll eat cleaner tomorrow. I'll hang out with my friends tomorrow. I'm just going to Netflix and chill and drink some alcohol and have pizza.
Yeah.
And that's because you didn't get enough sleep.
Well, and I feel bad for like shift workers. I mean, and there's many studies out there about shift work really impacting your health negatively.
30% shorter lives.
What's that?
30% shorter lives.
And it kills me because there's good people, and we need people like in the medical field. There needs to be overnight medical people, but I feel for those people because they're usually working 3, 4, 5 nights a week like that, with a couple nights off and long hours when they are working. So they're exhausted when they get off, and then they're trying to sleep when the sun is bright in the sky. And it's like the body's like, no. We need to get you on a circadian rhythm. And then I remember Dr. John Lemansky. I used to do a podcast with him. He used to do the overnight ER doc thing for 10 years. And he's 15 years removed from that, and he's still struggling with some of the effects of that. So I don't know how you mitigate that because those people
I've had some people ask me about this specific thing.
Yeah.
I would try and reverse as much as I can that circadian rhythm cues. So what I would do at night, if I was to go in for work at night, I would use a blue light device. You can get a Philips Go light that actually fits on your desk, or you can get these human chargers that go in your ears. Yes. Because what's really cool is right here you have these photoreceptors that are for blue light and that turn on your circadian rhythm. And interestingly, right here, and I believe this is an evolutionary thing, that if you're maybe stabbed in your eye, that you also have photoreceptors here in your ear.
Oh, wow.
And so these human chargers have like concentrated blue light that actually go in your ear like headphones. But you can also have these blue light devices, and you want to make sure it's more to the corners because that's where these receptors are. And you can turn on wakefulness, you can block melatonin. So that's what I would do if I was like just waking up and I was about to go into work for the evening. That's what I would do. And then at the end, like when I'm coming back home and there's sunlight and there's lights on in the house or whatever, like I would be wearing sunglasses, blue light blocking glasses, these kinds of things, and trying to do the best I can from that front. And then eating accordingly, like trying to eat during that night window and not eat during that daylight window. I'm trying to flip these things as best I can.
Yes, mimic day being night, night being day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a friend that's in the medical profession, and she works as an overnight nurse in a medical facility, and yes, she's struggling. And she said, "Got any tips?" So I was asking that for her. So thank you for your response. All right, so let's go to the growth part of energy. We're working our way down the acronym energy. And in this one, everybody and their mama sells CBD now. Like if you don't know about CBD, then you're asleep, because everybody and their mama, there's stores everywhere. I remember when I first interviewed somebody, this has been a decade plus ago, that was talking about the cannabidiol and the cannabinoid pathways in the body, and that it helps with pain receptors and all these other things. I'm like, wow, that sounds really cool. But I didn't think anything of it. And then suddenly CBD. But the problem is all CBDs aren't created equal. So how do people kind of cut through the marketing and find what's actually going to help them for why they're using it?
Yeah, that's a great question. But like a prelude to that, before we get into the cannabinoids, is how amazing the endocannabinoid system, the ECS, is.
Yeah.
Look, we have people that are experts on the nervous system, the circulatory system, all these different systems in the body, digestive system, but no one practically knows anything scientifically about the endocannabinoid system. And it's known as the master regulatory system. It controls pain, inflammation, mood, and so many disease states are correlated to this ECS and deficiencies therein. And it's so frustrating that we're not talking about it, that there's not anything addressing it, because the way to fix these deficiencies is with these naturally occurring cannabinoids.